It happened. I resisted for years, but P10K finally got me. Are you ready to make your prompt awesome? Well, let's get right to it then. Hey, Vlad here from devinsidey.com. Welcome to another video. If you're new here, you should probably know that this is mostly a Scala channel. However, very often I cover all kinds of software-related topics, especially gorgeous CLIs. We're on the road to P10K subs, so you know what you gotta do. I have to warn you that I have quite a bit of things to say before we actually get our hands on, so if you're just here for the installation instructions, then check out the timestamps below. Installing and configuring it is easy, but only if you know how all the pieces fit together. I'll show it to you by the end of the video. The reason we're here is because there are many gotchas and I want to set you up for success. Also, I don't want to be bombarded with questions in the comment section. All right, let's begin. When I started this channel, I modeled it after the Traversy Media channel, and its main host, Brad Traversy, made a conscious choice to use as few tools as possible when he records his videos. And the reason is obvious. He wants his videos to be beginner-friendly. I followed the same strategy for years, but ultimately I couldn't resist. As already mentioned, I love tools, and, tools are tools for a reason. They're not just eye candy, they're useful. And so I decided to change my strategy. Whenever I start using a new tool on camera, I make a video about it so that you can reproduce my environment. My dotfiles are online, by the way. And so I made videos about all kinds of things: VMs, WSL, Ubuntu, ZSH, Biobu, so many things. In fact, I use a tool called Stove to manage my dot files, and guess what? I already made a video about it. You get the point. Now that I started using P10K, I had to make a video about it, so here we are. I released my ZSH tutorials a couple of years ago, and in them I mentioned the very popular prompt Powerline, but I also mentioned that I didn't like it. I didn't like those arrows. They were taking way too much space. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, I checked it out, and as you can imagine, I changed my mind because I liked it. I realized that those arrows and those NZ backgrounds are not only configurable, but also optional. Okay, so what is it? Well, both Powerline and Power Level 10K are the so-called ZSH prompt themes. I personally don't like the word theme because the word theme implies that the changes are only cosmetic, but that's not what's up. Different themes have different tricks up their sleeves, and also they display very different information. They're called segments, and in fact, I've written one of my own here on stream, and this is what the next video is going to be about. By the way, you might want to check out this video even if you're not interested in writing your own segments, because in that video, I'm also planning to explain how to customize the existing segments as well. All right, now here are a couple of things that you need to know about it. Number one, Power Level 10K started as a fork of Power Level 9K, and the thing is that it wasn't merged for almost an entire year, and eventually it diverged so much that it deserved its own name. It got so popular, in fact, that Power Level 9K is now deprecated and its repo points to Power Level 10K. Number two, it's pronounced Power Level 10K or Power Level 10,000 or P10K or P10,000, but I prefer P10K because it's the shortest. And number three, all of these fancy prompts and themes have a couple of their own requirements. I'll list them here real quick, and I'll demo a couple of differences as we move along. Requirement number one, you need a decent terminal. I've tried a bunch of them, and I can recommend Alacritty, Windows Terminal, Kitty, and I've never been on a Mac, but people seem to be happy with iTerm too. Alacritty is pretty much the only cross-platform option in this list. In fact, Alacritty is the one that I use most of the time, but I really wish that it had ligatures. Requirement number two, you need a font with a lot of extra characters, also known as glyphs. More about this later. And the requirement number three, P10K only works with ZSH, so you need ZSH. However, if you use anything else like bash or fish, check out the Starship prompt. In fact, maybe one day I'll make a video about it. The same requirements though, decent terminal and font. It just that it works with any shell. I think I said everything I wanted to say, so let's finally begin right after the message from our sponsors, which is awesome people like yourself who support me on Patreon. There's many of you and only one of me, so all it takes is $1. It allows me to pay for a video editor and a thumbnail designer who free some of my time, which I then choose to spend again with you, whether it's by answering your questions on Discord or by my unfortunately casual live streams. Thank you. Let's talk about the terminal real quick. As you can see, I'm on Windows and I frequently get shit for it, but the thing is that I'm not only a software developer, I'm also a content creator. I literally have 4 devices on my desk right now that simply don't have drivers for Linux. When it comes to the terminal, most of the time I use Alacritty, and I really wish that it had ligatures, and sometimes I use the Windows terminal. In fact, hopefully in the future I'll be able to switch to Windows terminal, but for now, they have subtle differences, subtle bugs, and so for now I'm choosing Alacritty. So what you see over here is WSL, right? So So they're connected to the same distribution. You see Alacritty on the left and the Windows terminal on the right. They run Bioble inside of them, which is a wrapper around Tmux. Obviously, I have a video about it, so you might want to check it out. And so this means that whatever I type in one of them is getting automatically typed in the other one as well. The purpose of this demo is to show a couple of differences. The first one is emojis. If you're not familiar on Windows, you can hold the Windows key and press either dot or the semicolon, and you'll have this emoji picker. So we're going to pick one of the emojis, for example, this one over here. I'm just going to press enter, and it should have been inserted. I guess it is inserted. As you can see, they look very different, right? Whether I press enter or not, it's up for you to decide, which one is better. There are some general bugs and inconsistencies. For example, this is a tool called ASCII Aquarium that, displays an aquarium in ASCII. And as you can see, for example, Alacritty has this cursor jumping around everywhere, and Windows Terminal doesn't have it, and it's much smoother, even though they're both 3D accelerated, whatever, GPU accelerated things. But for some reason the Windows Terminal decided to display some gray background. So again, it's up to you to decide which one is better, which one disturbs you more or less, if you're even on Windows. The next point is not super important for the actual prompt, but since this is a programming channel, I'm going to mention it, and we're talking about the ligatures. So I'm going to go into another directory. I have an alias called V for NeoVim. So I'm going to open NeoVim, and I'm going to open some file, like for example, controller, like this one. So if I scroll down, I don't know, somewhere, for example, this arrow over here, as you can see, we have the ligatures, but only in the Windows terminal. Alacritty doesn't have ligatures. There's an issue that has been open for many years, but the main creator doesn't want to have ligatures in there, so probably they will never end up in Alacritty. And number 4, there are just many super subtle differences. Some of them are configurable. For example, in Alacritty, when it loses focus, this is how the cursor is displayed. In Windows Terminal, I believe it's not configurable. Another thing is that I can actually use my mouse to scroll in Windows Terminal. I cannot do this in Alacritty. Or if I open something like this in Alacritty, I cannot use my mouse over here. Contrary to popular belief, in NeoVim and obviously in Vim as well, you can actually use your mouse if you enable it. One of the really cool things that I really like in Alacritty, I wish that other terminals had this as well. Notice how when my cursor is on top of some character, it actually uses the foreground of that character for the background, and it makes the foreground dark. It makes it very pleasant to read, right? So for example, look over here, it's going to be like green. Over here, it's going to be like blue and stuff. And look at the Windows terminal on the right. It's much harder to read. I really, really like this feature. This is pretty much going to be like the only feature that I'm going to miss once I'm eventually going to switch to the Windows terminal. Another thing that we need to talk about is the custom palette that you can have in your terminal, right? So every terminal has a palette with like 8 colors that you can configure. And whenever you have a CLI program, it can simply refer to them by name, for example, like yellow, and then, the terminal will look up in the panel, and, my yellow can look differently from yours. But the program can also completely ignore your yellow and display whatever yellow it wants. As you can see over here, for example, right, this is NeoVim, so it has a very custom theme, and it uses 256 colors. And the reason I mentioned this, by the way, is that when you install P10K, it's going to run you through a wizard that you can, by the way, also rerun, and I'll show you all of these things a bit later. It depends on your choice. It might not even offer you to use the 256 color palette. Okay, this is actually the one that I'm using. So as you can see, like these colors, for example, they are not from my default palette, which is over here, by the way. So my .files are online. If you go to .files.devinside.com, and in this particular case, so if I press T and I type in Alacritty, this link is going to be down in the description. But this is my palette over here. This is my .files for Alacritty. Even though technically I use Alacritty in Windows, right? So, and I'm not synchronizing my .files in Windows because I barely have them. However, just for you guys, I also copied it over to Linux just so that it syncs, so that you guys can look into it. Also, I have over here in my Sublime text. So this is my config for Alacritty again, and this is my config for the Windows terminal. And you can see, they use exactly the same palette. It started with the space gray theme. Then I actually edited it a little bit. So now it's like a little bit of Frankenstein theme. I actually cannot find like which one it's displaying over here. I thought they would have names. It's weird. In any case, this is not the point. We're actually going to come back to these files a bit later. The point is that, you can choose a palette that you want, and you can potentially, optionally, it doesn't always work. It really depends on which choices you make during the configuration. It might offer you to keep using your palette or to use the 256 color prompt. In fact, if you like those, ANSI backgrounds with the arrows, you will be forced to pretty much use your palette. Okay, which is, by the way, not what I did. Okay, let's go back over here. In fact, let's actually go back to Vim, and let's start talking about the fonts. As you can see, these icons over here, everything is in the terminal, so it doesn't know how to display images, for instance, right? So all of these glyphs or characters have to be embedded in the font. Let me open again. Why does it do this sometimes? I really don't know why. Let me open again some file. Like, as you can see, for example, this is a Scala icon, right? And it's only visible because it's embedded in the font. And over here I have the git icon. There are these like no, not now. There are also like these diagonal characters over here. They all are part of a font. Now, it's your terminal's decision how to display a glyph that it doesn't have, but most likely you're going to see question marks if you haven't configured your font properly. If we were to go to the page of the Power Level 10K, it actually has a section where it talks about the fonts, and it actually recommends this font called Meslo LGS, right? So the way you download them and install them, you just click on it. At least in Windows, you can just, like literally click on it, and then you just click on install, and then you press yes, and then it's installed in just a second. If you press the start key and, you go to fonts, you type it, Meslo, and then you click on it, and usually, like, it really depends on which terminal you use or which editor you use. Sometimes you would need to use this whole thing, sometimes this thing, sometimes they have like other names. There are also websites where you can upload the font, and they will show you all the information, and then you can have like try around and play play with what your editor actually needs. So they have a section over here for this particular one. So if you're using iTerm, like this is what you need to do. All the other term, Windows terminal, you would need to use, Meslo LGS and F. For Alacritty, same thing. In fact, I've actually shown it to you previously. This is what I've been playing around with it. So this is how you would do it. Font normal family. That's exactly what the README over here is saying. For the Windows terminal, slightly different. So it has its own, configuration, and yeah, so it would be over here where it says face, Fiora code, NFM. So instead of this, you would use that font. Okay. Now I actually don't use this font. Let me explain to you which font I'm actually using. So there are pretty much 3 different kinds of fonts out there. The first ones are like the regular fonts, the one that from Word, like Comic Sans and Times New Roman and whatever. The other ones are the programming fonts. Most likely they have ligatures. They might also have a couple of special icons. And the third kind of font is a font which basically has just like the ASCII characters, just regular letters. Plus it has a bunch of glyphs specifically for like heavy CLI applications, with like icons for programming languages, or like these all kinds of glyphs. Okay, and there's also another thing called nerd fonts. Okay, so if you go to nerdfonts.com, it basically takes like all of these, special kinds of fonts and mixes them together, most likely with programming fonts. Okay, so for example, it even like took the icons from like Font Awesome. It has like the Powerline symbols. It has the dev icons for the programming language stuff. It has the weather icons and stuff. And then it took like, for example, Fiora code, which is the font that I'm using, and it patched it with all of these glyphs. And so what comes out is this gigantic font, which basically works exactly like Fiora code with the ligatures from Fiora code. But it also has all of these fancy glyphs. For example, if you go to icons and you can search, for example, like if I search for Scala, then there you go. This is the Scala icon. I can actually copy it, and I go back over here. I'm going to get out over here, right? I could paste it, and as you can see, this is actually the Scala icon. Okay, so if you go over here, you can, kind of go back, and you can press on download. You can choose your font, preview your font. So for example, if we were to go with Fiora code, which is the one that I'm using, there you go, Fiora code nerd font. So you can download it, and I'm gonna open it over here. Come on, today. Come on. There we go. So this is the one that I downloaded before. So if I were to extract it like this, As you can see, like these are all the options. And by the way, a trick in Windows, these are all like TTF files, so you can like grab actually all of them, and you can even right click and you can install all of them. I'm not going to do this because the only one that I'm actually using is the light version. If you're on a 4K screen, you might want to check out the Retina version over here, right? So I'm using the light version, and in fact, because I'm on Windows, I'm using this one over here, right? So as you can see, there is Fiora Code Light Nerd Font Complete. I'm actually using the mono version. I'm gonna show you the differences over here actually. So if I were to go over here, which is this video, I have made 4 screenshots. So one is using the Alacritty Nerd font, the other one is using the Alacritty Nerd font mono, the other one is doing the same thing in the Windows terminal. So if I were to go over here, and I'm going to go into full screen over here, so this is not the mono font, because like this icon for Ubuntu and this icon for this ranch is actually taller than all the other ones, right? And this is the same one, but mono. Like as you can see, you know, there's also something happening in the Java icon over here, like this, right? And now the same thing for the Windows terminal, right? One is mono, one is not, right? The one with the bigger ones is the one that is not mono, right? So now you know the difference, and this is why I chose mono. You can choose whatever you want. There we go. Let's go back. Also, I have subdomains for most things. So if you go to font.devinsideyou.com, then you're going to end up exactly on the Nerd Font page where you go, you know, Fiora Code Light, and this is the one that I'm using. It's exactly the same one as we have just downloaded. One other cool thing you need to know about the fonts is that sometimes I have a thing called stylistic sets. It's basically a further dimension, you know, a further way to configure your font, and it depends on what application, you know, in this case which terminal you're using. It might not support these patches. So if I open this over here, this is actually the main reason why I wanted to show this to you. As you can see in the Windows terminal, I actually specify the face, but I also specify the features. Okay, and Alacritty, for example, doesn't have this, and I'm actually going to demo this. So if I well, actually, maybe you can already see here. I'm looking for the letter R, right? So over here, there is a letter R in profile, and as you can see, it has like a tiny, like what's it called? Like a tiny tail, and over here it doesn't, right? So maybe I can actually zoom in a little bit in one of them, right? Like over here, see, like there's this. I'm going to call it tail, but which is a weird thing to say. Another one that I kind of prepared to like show you. So if I go to a file again, right? So if I start typing the and symbol, right? So this is literally the same font, right? But one of them uses a specific stylistic set to use this for the and symbol, and the other one does not, right? But it's literally the same font in both of them. Okay, let me get out of here again. Let me also clear the screen. I want to mention one more thing about the fonts, very specifically about the Sublime Text Editor. If you have seen my video, I believe I called it "Do All Roads Lead to Vim," in which I pretty much told all of my IDE story. Then you know that for like almost 5 years I've been a fan of Sublime Text, and in fact until today, you just saw it right now, and I still paid for the license, but unfortunately it's not what it used to be. It really saddens me to say this. So when you're using Sublime Text and you try to use, well, I only try with Fiora Code, right? So if you use the normal version of Fiora Code, you're going to have ligatures. If you're using Nerd Font, first of all, you have to jump through a couple of hooks, and I couldn't actually get it to display ligatures anymore. I really don't know why. I tried to Google this just so that you know. Also, the name of the font will be different. It actually wants to use the really like the full name. And so if I actually go here and I open the fonts and I search for Fiora Code, then you'll see that I actually have the normal one installed. This is the normal one that I use in Sublime. I use this one pretty much everywhere else. Fiora Code NFM, this is the name. All right, let's finally start playing around with it. So if we actually go to its page over here, then if we scroll down a little bit, there's actually a section how you can try it out in Docker. Okay, so you can just copy this whole thing. Obviously, you need to have Docker, you need to have Docker running. So as you can see, it just runs the terminal, sets a couple of parameters. It installs, git zsh, nano, and vim. It clones this prompt, you know, it puts this one line over here into a ZSHRC, and then it executes ZSH. So even though I already have it installed, I'm just going to paste this in. I already have the image downloaded. It says unable to find. I was actually playing around with it, and I thought I had this image. In any case, I have a really good internet connection, so it's going to take just a couple of seconds to run. Cloning, blah, blah, blah. There we go. Okay. So by default, when it runs, it notices that you don't have the configuration file, which is in your home directory, and it's called .p10k. And if you don't have this file, it's going to run you through this wizard. This task is pretty much to check whether you have a good font or not. And if you don't have a good font, I think, you know, basically, if I say no, let's actually try to say no. I think it will try to offer me. So if I say no, hold on, no, yeah. So as you can see, like, does this look like a lock? And it doesn't look like a lock, okay, anymore. And it's only because I'm saying, like, does this look like a but taller and fatter? Well, yes, okay. So I was actually hoping that it would offer me to install this. What was this font called? You know, the one that recommends this Monglo LS or whatever. But it didn't, and it actually never offered it to me. And it's probably because I actually said, you know, yes to all of these questions. So if I'm gonna go like quit and do nothing, or actually restart from the beginning, or right. So if I will answer these questions honestly now, like, does this look like a diamond? Yes, it does. Does this look like a lock? Yes, it does. By the way, notice the ligatures over here. Very nice. Yes. Debian logo, yes. Do all these icons fit between the crosses? Yes, they do. By the way, if they don't fit like just a little bit, feel free to still say yes. Okay, so there we go, yes. Okay, so now here are the choices. Now, all of them are functionally equivalent except for this pure one. If you use this pure one, a couple of things are not going to be available to you, okay? And it's very important. So I chose the lean one, and when you choose the lean one, it will actually ask you whether you want to choose, you know, whether you want to use the 256 colors. If you use these two, I believe it won't. In fact, let's go with, I don't know, let's go with rainbow right now, okay? Because we're just playing around inside of Docker, okay? So we're gonna go with 3, rainbow, okay? So now it asks you, okay, Unicode or ASCII. Well, Unicode, always choose Unicode. You're gonna have like all of these like cool glyphs, okay? 1, Unicode. Show current time. Usually I don't have it, but I'm going to say yes. I'm going to press 2 for 24-hour format. Okay. Now this is very interesting. Over here, you see what it is talking about. Okay. So prompt separators, and it says, okay, separator is like this thing. Okay. So you choose it over here. Again, as a reminder, alacritty on the left, Windows terminal on the right. But at this point, it pretty much doesn't really matter. Okay. So let's choose, for example, this one, slanted. Okay, so let's go with 3. Now it's talking about the head over here, right? So like this, like this, like this, or like this. So how about we go with this sharp thing? Okay, like this. All right. So now it's talking about the prompt tails, right? So this over here, tail. Okay. So I don't know. Let's choose the round one, right? Also, by the way, it's also the beginning. It's not just the tail, I believe. Oh no. Did we choose the beginning already? In any case, let's choose round 5, okay? Prompt height, 1 line or 2 lines. So the way this works is that even if you choose 1 line, the things on the right, they will disappear as you type, okay? So it's up to you. I prefer to use 2 lines, so I'm gonna go with 2 lines, okay? So now the prompt connection is that thing in the middle. I think we're going crazy here, so let's choose like solid. Like usually I prefer like the lean style. So let's go with like solid. Prompt frame, again, it's like this thing over here. Like, do I want it like only on the right? Do I want it on all the sides? Well, you know, we're going crazy. So let's go full connection and frame color. It's actually the first time that I'm seeing this, so I don't really see the difference. Oh yeah, here it's that thing in the middle. It's a frame color. Like as you can see, so this one is dark, this one is bright. Like for this particular case, I'm going to choose the lightest. So compact or sparse. Like as you can see, there's an empty line over here. So we're going to go with 2, sparse. Okay. Few icons or many icons. Like I personally, it's not that I don't like the icons. It's just that on the right, like usually you would still see the icons for like, you know, most important things. Maybe not for the time, maybe not for the duration over here, right? But for the most important things, you will. And on the left, it's always like, you know, the icon of your distribution, you know, this folder icon, and whether it's, you know, GitHub or GitLab, and, you know, some branch stuff. Okay. So in this particular case, I'm going to say yes, but my preference is no. Okay. So concise or fluent, it's about like this thing, right? So as you can see, it gets like really, really long. So I'm going to choose concise, but again, this particular time, I'm going to go with fluent. And this thing is my favorite feature. This is pretty much the only reason why I don't use the Starship prompt. In fact, maybe Starship prompt actually has this, but like this thing had it by default, P10K had it by default, and I chose it, okay? So the way this works is that If you don't have it enabled, then it works like any other prompt that you're familiar with. For example, over here, you type something, you see the prompt again, you type something else, you see the prompt again. Over here, every time you press enter, obviously it leaves out the output of the program, but it removes the prompt that it displayed before. I really, really love this feature. I really recommend that you give it a shot. Okay, so I'm gonna go with yes. Okay, instant prompt mode. So all of these segments, some of them take some time to load. I never had any issues with P10K to load this, so I'm going to disable this instant prompt mode. So the way instant prompt mode works is that it drops you into the shell. You can type immediately. However, it still loads some things asynchronously. I personally use things like direnv or direnv and Nix shells. So for me, this particular thing doesn't work because when the shell, when it gives me the prompt, I can't do anything with it anyway because I'm still waiting for, for the Nix shell to load, for example. I highly recommend that in the very beginning, you actually turn it off and then you see if it's too slow for you. I'm pretty sure that it's not going to be too slow for you, okay? So let's turn it off, okay? So now it's asking whether it should apply the changes to ZSHRC. I highly recommend that you sync your .files. I have a video about this, obviously, and then if it messes up your ZSHRC, you'll be able to run git diff on it, you'll be able to revert and so on. So in this particular case, we're inside of Docker, so I'm going to say yes, and as you can see, this is now my prompt, okay? At any point in time, you can type in P10K, and it will show you a couple of commands. One of them is P10K configure, which will rerun exactly the same prompt. Okay, P10K configure, and you start from the beginning, Q to do nothing. In fact, I'm actually going to get out of Docker because we actually don't really need it. Okay, so I'm going to show you that we can actually run this, over here as well, right? So P10K configure, right? So I'm gonna show you how I configured mine. So if you want to, you can replicate exactly what I did. So the first 4 questions are about the font. So we're gonna go yes, 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 yes. Over here, I chose the lean one, this one over here, lean, Unicode, and this is what I meant, 256 colors. So as you can see, this is my palette, the one that I configured. This is my yellow, this is my green, this is my blue, but I don't want it. I want more colors. Okay, so 256 colors. I don't want the time. 2 lines, disconnected, no frame, sparse, few icons, concise, absolutely yes, off, override P10K ZSH. I'm going to say yes because I'm synchronizing my .files, so I'm absolutely, I have absolutely no fear about it, messing something up. So I'm going to say yes, okay? First of all, even if you don't synchronize your .files, it actually backed up the alt config. In fact, maybe right now it actually messed it up because I had a symlink in there and it moved it. Before this, let me actually do diff, and I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to put that in. Okay, like this, and it should show me the diff. Yeah, so it does show me the diff. You might not have colors, because I actually don't know what it uses to diff it. GNU diff. Okay, there we go. So if you run this, for example, when I was playing around with Docker, I ran it, I didn't have any colors. Okay, let's actually go into my .files and let's see what it did. Okay, well, it did a bunch of this stuff, but actually I'm now a little bit concerned. I'm in my .files. ls-al. And there we go. .zshrc. Okay, so it's still a symlink. Okay, so it didn't mess up anything. Okay, so we're still good. If I open another one, it's all good. Okay, so this is how my prompt looks like. I highly recommend that you should sync your .files. It makes setting up new systems or keeping them up to date incredibly easy. Now I also have made a couple of changes to my configuration. Obviously my .files are online, so you can go check it out. But I actually want to show you how to install everything from scratch. It's going to take just a couple of minutes. All right. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to start Alacritty, and I'm going to do -l-v over here to show you that I usually use 3 WSL distributions. I made a video about WSL, obviously, so you might want to check it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to install a completely new one. So I'm going to go to Microsoft Store that these days takes forever to load for some reason. So I'm going to cut it out from the video. Cool, it finally loaded. So if I go over here and I go Ubuntu 20.04, which is the one that I'm going to go with. So we're going to click open. It's actually installed. It doesn't understand that I actually don't have it anymore. So it's going to take just, it says that it's going to take a couple of minutes, but it's actually going to take only a couple of seconds. There we go. So Vlad 1234, 1234, and no, this is not the password that I'm using for all the others. So now I can close it over here. and I'm gonna do this right now. And as you can see, there's a new one, so I can do Ubuntu hyphen 20.04. There we go, and this is an empty distribution. Nothing in there is installed. By the way, I totally forgot to tell you one more thing. P10K has a thing called, I don't know actually how it's called, but it's basically prompts on the right that it can only show depending on what you're typing. And I believe it only has this for Kubernetes, right? So if you start typing something like kubectl or K9S, I'm actually going to show this to you. So if I open my distributions for work, if I start typing something like K, you're going to see a Kubernetes prompt over here. Right? So if I do like K9S or, you know, kubectl, control like this, then it appears over there. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to install ZSH. We're going to install all my ZSH, which is not required for P10K, but, you know, this is the plugin manager of many people's choosing. So this is what we're going to go with. Before I started using Nix, I pretty much wrote my own like poor man's package manager. So what I did I have a subdomain. If you go to install.devinside.com, it's going to forward you to GitHub, and it's going to search for all the repositories that are called, you know, install hyphen. And you can also search, so you can do like ZSH, for example, over here. So as you can see, it will redirect to github.com/devinside, and it will search for install hyphen ZSH, and it will find these ones. Okay, so these are like super tiny scripts, and the way all of them work is that you copy these two lines. It basically downloads the script, then it, you know, makes it executable, and then you run it. Okay, so in this particular case, I'm going to copy it, but I'm also going to go over here, and as you can see, it pretty much does, you know, sudo apt install ZSH, and also, you know, whatever the readme of all my ZSH was saying. So if I paste this in there, over here, I press enter, 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. It installed ZSH. Now it's going to clone the all my ZSH repo. Come on, there we go. Cloning all my ZSH repo, and this is the all my ZSH thing. It asks you like, do you want to, you know, change the shell? Yes, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we go. Okay, so I believe that this is the all my ZSH prompt. So if I go out, I go out again. There we go. And yeah, so see, this is what happened. So basically, it just sourced the changes. So I needed to get out and coming back in, and so now there we go. Okay, so now I have ZSH, and now I have all my ZSH installed. This video is pretty much also about my setup. Even though I made a dedicated video about this, I'm using 3 plugins for ZSH. So in fact, if we go open ZSH RC, right? Remember, this is this very new distribution. Okay, so if I go over here, so this is the theme that I used before. I was using P10K. It's called In the Loop. And if we search for plugins, okay, over here. So this is a space separated list of plugins, or the way I actually prefer to do it is by you know, putting every plugin in its own line. So I'm using these 3: ZSH syntax highlighting, and ZSH, I believe it's auto suggest. Okay, 2 G's, 1 S. Auto suggestions. Okay, so these are not installed by default. In fact, let me actually show you my ZSHRC real quick, right? Even though again, like my .files are online, but still, I'm using these plugins. I believe all of them are actually installed by default with all my ZSH. These are just like auto, you know, they show auto completions. This can extract pretty much anything, so you don't need to remember, you know, whether it's a zip file or a tar.gz or whatever. Git is pretty much, you know, enabled by default. I don't really know what Mosh does. I know what the application does, but I don't know what this plugin does. I used to use a plugin called Timer that would show me how long each command took to execute, but now that I'm using P10K, I don't need it because it does this automatically. I tried out these ZSH autocomplete, and it pretty much like autocompletes everything like as you type, so you don't even need to press tab, and I found it annoying. And these are the 3 that I just recommended, okay? And these 3 are not installed, okay? So if I actually get out of here, hold on, escape and get out of here, right? So if I get out and I come back in like this, as you can see, it says that it couldn't find like any of these plugins. Okay, now obviously I have install scripts. I'm gonna walk you through the installation real quick. It's super easy. So we need this one, and this one. So I'm not sure why it looks like this. Did I press on something? Oh, this is ZSH. Okay, these three. Okay, there we go. So they all look exactly the same, right? So you copy like these two lines. If you look over here, it just clones the repo. This is how you do like all my ZSH installation things. Okay, it just puts them all into if you have this variable somewhere else, but usually into all my ZSH custom plugins or themes. Like all of these three are plugins. And by the way, P10K, I have an install script for P10K. It's going to look exactly the same, but it's not going to put it into plugins. It's going to put it into themes. Okay. So if we go over here, I'm just gonna like paste this and I'm gonna press enter. And while it does this, I'm gonna go over here, grab the next one. Okay, there we go. And grab the last one, which is this one. There we go. And we might as well also grab P10K. So same deal, install.devinsideu.com. Typo install devinsideu.com slash I think type something like power, and you're gonna find it over here. All the links are going to be down in the description. These two lines over here, this is copy pasted pretty much from the README. Like as you can see, it downloads it into the themes directory. If you're not using OMyZSH, there is still a way to install Power Level 10K. In fact, if you go over here and you click on installation, bunch of different ways to install it. Okay, so let's go over there. We're gonna paste it in. There we go. And by the way, we might as well enable it. Vim ZSHRC, and we go up. We go here, and you just type power level 10K slash, and again power level 10K. Right. There we go. Get out. Come back in. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna say no. Quit, because it said that it couldn't find syntax highlighting. So this was probably a wrong paste. So let's go again. I probably copied the same one twice, right? So we need this one. All right, there we go. Paste. Operation not permitted. What? Hold on, we need to get out, get back in, quit. So this is probably happening right now because we started using P10K, but we haven't actually configured it. So let's actually configure it, because there's something like wrong right now. Okay, so P10K configure, yes, 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 lean, Unicode, 256 colors, current time, no, 2 lines, disconnected, no frame, sparse, few icons, concise, yes, yes, off, yes. Okay, so there we go. This is pretty much my configuration. Let's paste these 2 lines now, or exists and is not an empty directory. How did this happen that it says that, okay, so this means that this is a typo. So this is a typo. Hi, okay, hi, there's a T, okay, highlighting, there we go. Cool, I'm going back in, there we go. All right, so this means that if I do something like get, you get highlighting. If I do like get status, I know there's an error message because this is not a Git repository, right? But if I do get, it shows me this history thing, and I can go like write and I get auto completion. If I do something like get remote -v, right, and I do get again, and I hold control, I press write, it's like partial auto completion, right? So it didn't have to complete the V. And the last one is Z. It just remembers in which folders I am. So if I go like back to this and back here, so now if I do Z, alacritty, for example, ZALA, it remembers that I was there. Okay, see, that pretty much the 3 plugins that I use all the time. As you can see, this prompt doesn't look exactly like mine. So let's go into P10K. So if you scroll down just a little bit, this is pretty much like line 20 or something, right? So over here, I enable the OS icon, right? Because I always wanted to see it. There is something about context. Let's actually search for context. Here, there we go. So by default, it displays it on the right, and by default, if you're not a root and you're not SSHing anywhere, it will actually not display it. So I'm gonna cut it out. So I actually haven't explained this, right? So it basically has like the stuff on the left, the stuff on the right, and it also has like new lines, so you can actually put something on on the second line, on the left and also on the right if you want. And the things on the right, they will always be overwritten if you're typing something and it's longer, right? So they have priority. Okay. So I pretty much want to have it here. So OS icon and context. But if I go out of here, I'm still not going to see it, right? So I'm going to see, you know, if I get out and come back in. So I see the OS icon, right? But I still don't see the context. And they did it by default, as already explained, right? Because I'm not SSHing and stuff. So if you search for something like host, yeah, so pretty much over here. So if you scroll down a little bit over here, you're going to find this line over here. As you can see, there's a tip, remove the next line to always show context. So this is exactly what we're going to do. Okay, like this. Okay, and one other thing that I enabled is actually Java version. So this one, it's on the right. And so if you're in the directory which smells like a Java project or a Scala project, it will actually show you the Java version. As you have seen over here, right? So if I go here, basically, let me actually close one of them. Let's go like this. So if I'm here, like as you can see, I see the Java version over here, right? And this is also the SBT version. This is the custom segment that I built, and this is what the next video is going to be about. Let's actually go back over here. So let's get out and get out of here, come back in, and there you go. So now it's starting to look exactly like my prompt. Okay. One last thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to install Java. So I'm going to go into install davinsider.com/Scala. I'm going to grab this one. Okay, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it in over here. And now I'm not sure which one is mine and which one is not, because they're starting to look like, you know, they're starting to all to look like mine. It's actually going to fail because there's a tiny bug that I cannot, you know, that has nothing to do with me. But as you can see, it downloads Corsair, which is a package management tool for Scala, and it runs the Corsair setup command. It says yes to everything. It installs the GraalVM Java, and it installs these apps, and it's actually going to fail when it's going to install itself, actually. But it doesn't really matter because all we need is for it to install Java, and we're going to speed this up, actually, for you. It's actually taking forever. I don't know why it takes so long. I really don't know why it takes so long. All right, for some reason, I ended up on some weird server and actually waited for 7 minutes for this thing to download the JVM, and as already announced, it actually crashed, okay? So we need to go out and go back in so that we can do, you know, Java version, and ta-da, we have some sort of Java. So let's take a dev directory, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna clone one of my projects. So if we go to, you know, github.com/davinsider, and the one that that I've been showing to you is this one. I don't have my SSH keys over there, so I'm gonna grab this one, and we're gonna go, you know, git clone this thing, and as soon as I'm gonna switch into it, we're gonna see the Java prompt. Okay, so now this is pretty much the entire application of my prompt. In fact, actually forgot to show you one tiny thing. So if you go to my ZSHRC, and there is a context template somewhere, not ZSHRC, hold up, into the, you know, the P10K thing. Okay, so there's a context template. Okay, so if you have seen my WSL tutorials, I actually had to override this because I created my own environment variable that I source only in my, you know, in each individual WSL distribution, because otherwise it would use my computer's name, right? So this is why it says davinsider over here, even though my what's it called, host. Yeah, even though my host is Agile Nomad, right? So it's in my dotfiles. If you want, you can check it out. All right, so as you can see, this is my real distribution, and this is the one that we just set up. So it looks pretty much exactly the same, modular this SBT version that I built myself. I haven't created the PR yet, so I haven't contributed it yet. So you cannot have it yet unless you just, you know, copy paste stuff from my dotfiles. But as already mentioned, the next video is going to be exactly about this, so you might want to check it out. And I really highly recommend that you do check it out, because I will actually show you how to also customize the already existing segments. For example, how to change, you know, the color of this, or, you know, there are also a couple of parameters for a couple of segments and stuff. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I see you in the next one. For now, as always, it's been Vlad from davinsider.com. Don't forget to like this video if you did, subscribe if you want to improve the developer inside you, and if you wish to support free education, please consider doing so on Patreon or GitHub sponsors, and watch my videos before everyone else. And most importantly, take care.